Hey everyone, this is Anna here, and in this video I would like to show you guys how I mix my own glazes. I know some of you have asked me to do that, and hopefully I'll do a good job explaining that. I've been away a little bit from pottery, just taking a little break, doing other things that I like, yard work. I had a ton of yard work to catch up, things from the winter, right? All that cleanup that you need to do. I love to landscape, and I know the reason I'm talking about this now because I know a lot of us potters love gardening as well. So I'm just telling you a little bit about what I've been up to. I have a vegetable garden that I've been doing my seedlings, starting my seedlings indoors for since February, I think. And finally, I got them planted outside. I love to landscape. We've been in this house now for 2.5 years and new construction. So you know that I started out with nothing. Like how builders put very little, they do very little landscaping, minimal. And I love to do it. So I started everything on my own, redid everything that they have put things in the wrong places, plants that like shade, they put it in the sun and so forth. So over these years, I've been buying more plants. Every year, in spring, I like to go to a place here that is a family-owned. It's called Growers Outlet. They have a ton. It's like a Home Depot, but all plants. So I go over there and I buy my share of plants for the season. So I just did that this year. And when I'm on that store, it's like being in a toy store. I get lost and I start buying things. My daughter bought me a lot of plants for Mother's Day as a Mother's Day present, which was wonderful. But when you're on that, I get, at least I get so happy being around plants and flowers that I'm not even thinking that I'm the one that who is going to plant all these. So, anyways, I had my work cut out for me. All these days now, I was supposed to be taking just a little break and resting a little bit in between all my things that have gone to the gallery now. And the birds are also, I was invited to have also an exhibition to be part of the birds exhibition that they're going to have, the gallery, same gallery. So that's why you've seen me sculpting. Anyways, in between all that, I've been trying to do a little bit of work outside. So enough of that. I just wanted to tell you guys what I've been up to, and I hope you've had a chance. I don't know where you are watching me from, in the U.S. or in other countries, but I hope you've had a chance to go outside and play in the dirt also, and not just the mud, the clay. But I love to have my hands in dirt and planting stuff. So enough with that. Let me zoom in and we're going to go over a bunch of things that I'm using here. I've had all my raw materials lined up. And one thing, one of the most important things that you guys are going to need is a respirator. And I'm going to put a link of everything that I'm using on my description of this video. So the respirator is from Amazon. This one is a great one. It's not expensive. It's very comfortable to wear. Has the silicone, very soft, that gets in touch with your skin. And then these filters is what I recommend. It's also a 3M filter, and you buy them separately, and I'll put the link for that too. It comes right off. You just rotate it and you twist to put it in place again. It's adjustable. It goes like this. So yeah, you're going to need that. This is the most important things to protect your health, right? Before you start mixing. But I have pulled up everything here that I needed for a recipe that I'm going to show you guys. And yeah, let me zoom in and we're going to go over everything. So first of all, I just wanted to show you just a little bit of my raw materials, and I'm gonna have to be, because I have my phone on a tripod here, I'm just going to show you real quick some, for certain things, I'm going to be moving you around. But so these are some of the glazes that I have already mixed. And then on the top shelf, there are some of the raw materials. And I think I might have mentioned it before. It's almost like a recipe for a cake, let's say, comparing. Once you have the basics, the basics raw materials that goes on the base of each recipe. So there are things that are used a whole lot, very common, like silica. It's one of the things that are used a lot on. I mean, when I say a lot, is the quantity are usually the biggest quantities that goes into a recipe are silica, maybe nephsi. Let me see if I can, right there. Um, so once you buy, look up some recipes that you think you would like to start with, and then once you're gonna compare them and see how there are a lot of ingredients or the materials that are used across the board. So that's how I started. I started by comparing the materials and then buying the ones that I really wanted for certain glaze that I could use on other glazes. And then you have your other materials that I'm gonna go over here that are what gives color to the glaze and what makes a glaze opaque or transparent. Let's say they're called opacifiers. Um, so, anyways, I'll get more into that, but that's how I started. And by the way, I took a workshop from John Britt um, quite a few years now ago that I do recommend if you have a chance to take his workshop. The one I took was in North Carolina, but I believe he teaches other workshops all over in other places as well. But this is the book I recommend from John Britt. It's called Mid-Range Glazes. It's a wonderful book. It's great for beginners too, and people with more experience as well. It goes over everything. Like he's got. Let me put this down a little bit. So hold on. So I hope you can see this better now. But it goes over pretty much schedules, firing schedules, oxidation and reduction. Let me see, where is that? It's on the beginning. So on the very beginning, it talks about the ramp hold, the slow cool schedule. It's got tons of pictures with examples of the glazes here. Let's see where he goes. He talks about how he mixes, and here are the holds, and he makes the curves to show how the ramp hold goes, up, and then it holds for a while. Anyways, he talks about that. I mean, I didn't read this whole book, but I do use a lot. I mean, I find myself using this book all the time as a reference. And I have about maybe 4 or 5 glazes that I really like that I mix always from this book. But then every now and then I feel like mixing other glazes, from here just as an experiment and see if I like it. But he divides it by color. So here are your tea dusts, more of the amber color glazes, and then oh gosh, he goes into. I'm holding this one because the one that we're gonna use is on this page, but he goes into purples and reds and yellows and copper, yellows, black. So there are a ton of glazes in here and examples too. He also has a group on Facebook group that you can join called Exploring. Yeah, it's almost the name of the book, but it is a lot of the people who have bought the book and experiments, and they post it there. It's called Exploring Mid-Range Glazes. You can find it on Facebook and join. which I recommend because you can search for the certain glaze. So let's say you wanted to mix this one here, you can search for this is just a white liner glaze, and you can search for that and by the name, and you can find examples. I mean, I have posted there quite a bit, but it's a great group, so I recommend this book. And again, I will put the link for everything that I'm talking about here: the book, the respirator with the filters. um, Raw materials, you can get them online today. Nowadays you can get it, most of the pottery online, or your local pottery supplier should have a lot of the ones that you're gonna need. Or Sheffield, I think, is one of the places in out of Seattle. I think it sells the ceramic shop. I've used them before. Clay King is another one that sells um, raw materials. I'm talking about the ones here in the US. You can search on your area if you're out of the country where they sell, but I'm pretty sure nowadays you can find anything online. So I find most of my stuff locally, so that's where I buy my stuff. But whenever they don't have something, I have bought some things online. And this is the scale that was actually recommended on his workshop. Let me zoom in. Let me see. It's called Balance 2600. That might be, because this was quite a few years back, that might be another one now that it might be a little better than this one, but it's not that expensive. You don't have to buy a real high-end scale, but this one does a really good job for measuring, the amount of, the raw materials for the glazes. So, all right, so we talked about the scale you're gonna need. I will put the link for that. So the glaze that I'm going to start with is the one that I have requests about. And then once I do one, I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to do others. Like the Kittens Clear that I posted a recipe on my under the community. If you go on the top of my YouTube page, you have, your videos, playlists, or whatever. There is also a community tab there. And you go there, and I have some recipes. I have my schedule. It's a slow cool schedule that I use, that if you would like to use the same, feel free to just copy that. Anyways, the one that I'm going to mix today is Seltzer Chun. And let me see if I can zoom in right here. Okay, so just for a comparison, I'll show you how to read here on the book, how to read these recipes here. Maybe I have to zoom out a little bit more. Nope. Let me see if it like this is better. Let me bring the phone closer. Okay, I think this is good. So Seltzer Chan is right here. So you can also look on the back of the book where he lists all the recipes and what page they are. This one is on page 128, but if you get a newer edition of this book, it might be on another page because he said some corrections and stuff. So Seltzer Chan, but you see there are other ones here. There is this one called Deep Purple, Dark Blue Purple, and Seltzer Chun. This one is the turquoise. Let me see if it is the turquoise. Yeah, the turquoise, which uses copper carbonate to make that turquoise color. And I use a lot of that one for as a liner glaze. And also you can use it on the outer side of your pottery. But the way it works is you look at here on this column, and then you look across. Here are all your materials that you're going to use. So oops, Let me get a marker here, and I don't care if I mark my book. Oops, just to show you. I hope it's enough, close enough that you guys can see. But you go across here. So the first ingredient you're going to use here, or material, I'm calling ingredient like if we're making a cake, but um, it's you see and you follow across here is 34, and this is all percentages. Okay, that's how this reads. It's all in percent. So 34%. I'm gonna just make a mark here of F4 feldspar. Now, and I'm gonna go explain some of these names too, because some of these have different names depending where you get it from any pottery supplier or online store. For example, the F4 feldspar has like 4 or 5 different names. So I think I marked, and is this one right here. Uh, so you see here where I wrote down all the names, because let's say my local pottery supplier sells it as, they call it minspar. Same thing. It has the same chemistry as all these other names, or very similar. So it's like a substitute, but it's exactly the same. Soda feldspar, F4 feldspar, NC4. I think it's NC4 minspar, I believe, or NC4. Custer feldspar, that's another name. Potash feldspar. But the one I buy, or the ones I see the most, is minspar. All the same. So now you know that one. I think that's the one that has the most variations in names or their substitutes. Um, so 34% of that, 30% of silica. If you follow here across, you see silica here and you follow, this is your recipe. So that's 30%. Then whiting is another one, 10%. And then dolomite, 6%. Frit, 3134. Make sure you don't confuse this one with 3124. They're similar, but not exactly the same. So I follow, what is in here. So that's Frit 3134, 17%. And then zinc oxide, 3%. So on all recipes, this is considered to be your base recipe, because if you add all these numbers, it equals to 100, okay? So that equals to 100%. Now, when you see below this line here are your modifiers, what modifies this clay, which would be either the color to make the glaze either opaque or clear or transparent, translucent, I should say. And I'm not sure if there are others, like it should be others that I'm not thinking straight right now, but those are the one that I know the most would be your, like here, for example, to make the blue color, the turquoise, they use, or he's recommend using 3% of copper carbonate right here. And then rutile is 2% optional. I don't use rutile on my recipe. I'm not sure what that would do, but he does put optional here. So I don't know if it makes the glaze a little bit more blue instead of turquoise. I'm not sure. I haven't tried that option yet. And then most glazes, or almost all the glazes I've used, has 2% bentonite. And what bentonite will do is keep your glaze in suspension, so they don't all fall to the bottom. They call it hard pan. Although this glaze does that, even with the 2% bentonite. Now, I've read And if any of you are really experts in glazes or know more, about glazes than what I'm saying here, and if I'm saying something wrong, please feel free to correct me. Like I said, I'm not expert. I just read a lot and do a lot of research and have taken his workshop. So I know from that. But what I've read is that bentonite, the recommendation is 2% because if you go over that, that can sometimes change a little bit of the color of your glaze, so maybe it's not as bright or something. It does something to the glaze. So their recommendation is usually, as you will see, most glazes is 2%. So I follow that. And then, of course, the copper makes your glaze, more of the blue. Although here, as you notice on the title, it says copper reds. And most of these, the example that he has here is with on the he calls it here, when you see, if you buy this book, which I do recommend, you see the example here, and it tells you here on the bottom, the photograph, what was fired. It was cone 6 R1. That means reduction. So it wasn't on an electric kiln. And as you know, when reduction, copper becomes red. On this one, became kind of purple, and you see some little reds coming through. But that's usually what it does with the copper carbonate. But on electric, it does the turquoise, color. So on my experience, because I've been using this glaze now for so long, and it's very annoying when the glaze does that hard panning on the bottom. Everything kind of falls on the bottom, and to stir, it makes it really hard. Sometimes I use one of those handheld little hand blender. You can use different things. Some people use that cement mixer to mix the glazes if it really pans out on the bottom. Hard pan, I guess it's called. But I use this. This works. It has another area, part that goes in here. Anyways, but because of that, I did some research to how to minimize that. And what I found out is with the Frit 3134, you can actually substitute, or in my case, I did half and half of the Frit 3134. I added Gerstly borate, which it helps with that issue of hard panning. So what I did is, instead of 17% that says right here for Frit 3134, I divided in half. So at first I was going to use half and half, which would have made 8.5, right? Half of 17%. But instead of that, just to keep it simpler, I made 8 and 9. So that adds up to 17. And here I'll show you, if you want to take a snapshot of my own recipe, which I did. Like I said, I did Frit. That's the only difference from the book, is Frit 3134. I did 9, and then Gerstly borate, I did 8. And that helps with that issue that I just mentioned, of everything kind of falls to the bottom, and then it takes you a while to just mix the glaze. So whether if you want to use my recipe, my variation, or use the book, it's fine. And then you can make your own adjustments if you want. So anyways, here I have all the percentages adding to 100. Then bentonite, which is on all recipes. Now what I did here, I divided into the different colors that I have tested. And here are, let me see where I put my testers. Oh, it's right here. So here is the blue. I call it turquoise blue. It's this one here. And then this one is the white. So, and then I have a creamy color that I don't have the tester here, which is very similar to the white, except that it's very light, creamy color. Also good for as a liner glaze. I use them a lot. I use either white, blue, or the cream. And you're welcome to try different colors, right? You can explore different colors, different um, mason stains if you'd like to make it a different color. But anyways, this is the base, adds to 100. Then for the cream color, I added 2% Zircopax and 1% yellow iron oxide. Very similar to red iron oxide, except that it's more yellow color. For the turquoise blue, I add 2% copper carbonate, even though the book tells you 3%, but I like 2%. It's a little lighter turquoise, so this is the 2%, and I like that. So you can play with that, with the percentage. I think they say you shouldn't use more than 3% to be food safe with copper carbonate. So try to stay below the 3%. So I use 2%. And then on the back, I always do a little, I always add other glazes just to see what happens. And see how this glaze always takes other glazes really well. It has the drips and it doesn't make like that hard line where you can see the glaze, like the dividing. Usually it blends kind of very nicely when you add a runny glaze. So this one I added a watercolor blue, and I wrote it here on the bottom. And then watercolor blue green, I think it's called, is also on the book. And then SCM, it stands for strontium crystal magic. All that is a glaze that it's a flux. So it does that. It's a runny glaze that usually you don't use that by itself. You use it over something, just like the Mako flux or light flux. You can use that over a glaze and it makes it run. So I usually put that on the back just to see what happens. So I do that a lot. Anyways, that's my two test styles with the colors. And then for the white, I add 2% tin oxide and 1% rutile to make the real bright white. Now, they say that tin oxide, you can also substitute tin with Zircopax, which is an opacifier. Tin is also an opacifier, but the tin is more expensive, but I had it here, so I'm using tin because it does make it whiter than the Zircopax. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe this one I use Zircopax. It's pretty white, but they say the tin makes it even brighter white. So I'm gonna use tin oxide just because it's what I have. But for today, I'm going to mix this one, the blue, because I'm running out and I needed more glaze. So I hope that with this, you can look at other recipes and be able to mix it your own. The other one is the Kitten's Clear that I use quite a bit. Very similar. You have your base ingredients, the raw materials, and then there are a few others, bentonite. Can't remember what else is the additional to the 100%. So now, converting that to grams, right? This would equal to 100 grams, let's say, because those are the numbers. You can just convert that, and that would be 100 grams. So what I do is 100 grams is almost nothing. So I do 1,000. So when you add the 0 on each of these numbers will equal to 1,000 grams, which equals to 2 pounds or close to 2 pounds, maybe a little over. So if I wanted to make 2 pounds, which I think that's what I'm gonna do today for this video, and then what I can do is add that amount to the jar or the bucket that I already have my glaze and just add to it, and then just add a little bit more water, and we'll talk more about that also. But if you're making from scratch, I would say do either 1,000 grams or 2,000 grams. That would be equal to a little bit over 4 pounds. That's what I recommend. Instead of trying to do too little, that's very little. So I would suggest 1,000 grams is what I like to do. So 1,000 grams, 2 pounds, right? So also I have to add a 0 to this one. And my turquoise blue, add a 0 to the 2% of copper carbonate, so that would be 20. These are all in grams. So let's go here to my scale. And I'm gonna turn it on. So I'm going to be adding the stuff here to this little cup here. So I'm just gonna zero that out. So now it's 0, right? With the cup on top. You wanna do that so it zeroes out. And then I'm going to be putting everything here on this cheap plastic container before I add it to my bucket already that I already have. So first ingredient on the glaze. I keep calling ingredient. So I guess you guys know what I'm talking about. Soda feldspar, or F4 they call it for. They call for F4 feldspar. So, oh, I need to put my respirator. It might be muffled, the sound. I don't know how that's going to sound for you, but I am going to use my respirator so that you can just see how I measure, okay? So, F4 feldspar, 34 or 34% will be 340 grams. Make sure that here it says G for grams. Oops, yeah, it says G already. To change your unit, let me zoom in. Let me zoom in here. Okay. To change the units, that's ounces, pounds. Not sure what that one is. And there are a lot. Pieces, no. G would be grams. Make sure you have it on G. Okie dokie. Now let me back out a little bit more. Yep. There you go. So I'm going to use this container here, and I put it in here, and I have to zero that out. So now I'm going to measure the first material to use is this F4 feldspar, as it says here, 340 grams, okay? And here it says grams on the units. And I use these little scoops. You can either buy, or I save from my dry laundry detergents. I just save them to use as scoops. Hope you can see the numbers there on the scale. So that's the one that has the largest amount is this one, is the feldspar. So that's 324. So then when it gets close like that, you just add it little by little. That's 330. Yep. 340. There. 340. Now I put it on this other container. Here you go. So what I do usually, I just cover. I just cover this and put it away. That way I know I already used it. So you don't get mixed up. So next in line, silica 300. Like I said before, in a lot of glaze recipes, the silica is one that is used the most, or large quantities of it. $300. Okay. So now this is the silica. So as you guys see, this is getting pretty full right now. I might have to get a bigger container, but all the other materials are lower amounts. So we'll see if I can still fit everything here. Okay, so I've done silica, feldspar, silica. Next one, a whiting. So let's see. That is 100 grams that I need. So okay, so it's getting pretty full, but I think we can do it. Make sure you get everything. And it zeroes out again. So that was whiting. And like I said before, I usually just put them away so that I know I'm done with that. You can also just cross off, you know. Next in line is dolomite. Dolomite 60. So as you can see, it gets less and less. Well, I forgot to put my little scoop on the other one. That's okay. So that one, dolomite, is 60. 60, right on the nose. So that goes there. Getting pretty full. But as you see, we're using less and less. Next is Britt, and those are the two that I said that I combined. Used to be the recipe calls for only this, but I divided the amount for the Britt and I used Respirator so it doesn't do the hard panning. So, well, I'll do this one first. I use, for the Britt 3134, I use 90. Okay, so that was the fruit. 90. Yeah, I think I might have to get another container. I'll be right back. As you guys can see, I moved it to a I think this is a 5-gallon bucket, or 2-gallon maybe. I got from Home Depot. So I'll do the rest of the fruit. That's where we were. Now, on to the next one, Gersley borate. That is 80. Next one. Okay, so that's 80. We're almost there. I swear, it's not that hard. And then, oh, one thing that I forgot to bring down is the bentonite. Can't forget that. Okay, so next is zinc oxide, 30. So got 30. There. That one is done. Off to the next one. So now are the ones that we added bentonite and copper, as you can see here, for turquoise, 2% copper, and then bentonites right here. So bentonite is 2%, so it's very, that would be 20, because we added the 0. That's 20. And last but not least, copper carbonate. And that one is 2%, which is going to be 20 also. So that is it. That is the last ingredient. So let me wash my hands and clean up a little bit. I'll be right back. So after I mixed all the dry materials, you want to mix with either purified water. This one I just get at Publix, our local supermarket here, or distilled water, because they say regular water has other things on it, like that you don't want in your glaze, that can modify sometimes. I don't know, can modify the color, the glaze, or something. I always use purified water, or same as distilled water. And what I'll do is, just at first, because I don't measure, I go by eye and feel. So as an example, let me bring it down here. So this one is Celso-chan cream color, and you see how it's more yellow because it has the yellow iron oxide, but it's actually like a real light cream color when you glaze it and you fire it. But this is the consistency. I got some that is on the bottom. I think I'm so used to now telling what is the right consistency. I keep getting the stuff that is on the bottom because I haven't really mixed it that well yet. But it's almost like the consistency of whole milk, I would say. It's a little creamy, but not too thick and not too thin either. You see how it makes that when you go like this, the drips, It makes like a thin line. Some people say you can put your hand in there when you see your knuckles. That's when you know it's good. I just know by eye. So, but you can Google and see the amount or the ratio. I believe is, can't remember if it's 1 to 1 or a little less water than that. So the way I start is, at least for starters, what I do is I just want to pour a little bit of water so that the dry ingredients will get wet. And so enough for them to start bubbling up like you see. And then I close it there. I close and I let it, stay that way for maybe a couple hours or 3 hours, something like that. You can even wait until the next day. It doesn't matter. All it does is make sure that the water is getting through all the powder that is in there. And instead of trying to mix it all right now, so I'm not breathing that, so I close it. So I keep it like that until everything gets absorbed. Then, let me see where my sieve is here. Then what I would do is put through the sieve, go from one bucket to another. That way, sometimes there are other grainy things that stays behind, and you want to put it through a fine mash sieve. And this one is a Laguna sieve 80 mash is what I use. It's what I recommend, I guess, has always worked pretty well. I have these for years. It's a little pricey, but it lasts a long, long time. So I go from one bucket to another. I do that about 3 times until everything goes through and I don't have anything else, any of the grainy stuff that are left behind. Some things don't dissolve, so that comes off from the glaze. You don't want that. That's why you put it through here. So we're back here when I was explaining about the sieve. This is my sweet granddaughter, Reese. She's 7. And
I also made a unicorn, which I think is in the kiln or something.
Yeah, you can tell them. She made a unicorn with me. It's actually an alicorn, right?
Yes, it has wings.
I learned about alicorn. Anyways, all our stuff, all my birds, including her alicorn, is on the kiln right now. Is in the kiln. Being fired for this fire. So we're gonna see. Probably tomorrow we can glaze it. We're gonna start glazing. So she's here. We watch her after school. So she came in during the video and I told her she could stay just for the last few minutes. So anyways, I was telling them that this is the sieve that we use to put. It's where you put the glaze through to make the glaze real smooth. It takes all the grainy stuff. So anyways, this one is the Laguna sieve 80 mash. It's a real fine mash. You're gonna need this, and I'll put the link for all the things that I'm using.
Can I put it in?
Yeah, you can actually go around the video here, the thing, and put it under. See under there on top of the clay? Yeah, so you can put it right there, Reese. So that's it, everybody.
No, I don't want to be.
I put the water here, that distilled water, and it's gonna be real thick because all I did is I put enough just to get absorbed by the powder. And then once I put all through the sieves and everything, I add water slowly until I see the consistency is right. But I will write something in the description for you guys that want to know percentage. I will put that in the description. That way you have an idea. With me, like I said, I just eyeball it. So please stay here. Anyways, guys, I hope I was thorough enough explaining, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.
No, I don't want to leave yet. I want to keep talking to whoever's listening to this. Whoever's a bird lover or clay lover.
Say bye-bye.
I don't want to say bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, guys.
No.
Bye.
No.